Global economic weakness hanging over the market as geopolitical risks rise. Today, Brexit in the headlines as Prime Minister Boris Johnson moves to suspend Parliament, adding more uncertainty to the negotiations in Europe. Plus, Deutsche Bank out with a report saying that we should settle in for a long, protracted trade war with China as more than 160 business lobbies write a letter urging the president to delay the upcoming round of tariffs. Will these events tip the global economy into a recession? Let's bring in Fred Kempe, CEO of the Atlantic Council, and Amanda Sloat, Senior Fellow at the Brookings Institution. Very good afternoon to you both. Fred, I'll start with you. Is China and trade the biggest issue still?
Oh, I think it's the biggest of all issues. What's unusual in this administration, particularly President Trump, is he set in motion 4 mega geopolitical issues that we're tracking, but China is the biggest of them because it's nothing short than trying to change the way China operates. You've also got Venezuelan democracy and unseating Maduro. You've got Iran changing its malign behavior. And you've got North Korea trying to negotiate a nuclear deal. Very unusual to have 4 huge pieces of policy of this sort in play. But China is definitely the biggest one. And where markets have gone wrong is they keep watching Trump's individual tweets and they keep swaying back and forth. And what they're starting to see is we're in for a new era, I would say a generational era, of major power competition. And it isn't about tariffs going one way or another. We now have to start thinking about the cost to individual companies and countries of a potential increasing decoupling of the world's 2 most significant economies.
Fred, just how are you guys at the Atlantic Council thinking about how all of this strategically is going to shake out for Trump ahead of the election? I mean, on one hand, he has the ability to calm it down, get to the table, take tariffs off, ease some of the financial and economic pain in order to win an election. But he seems pretty intent on winning a good trade deal as well for the U.S. So what's the calculus?
Well, you've got better economists on your show than I am, but it seems to me that we're in a down cycle. And in a down cycle, you don't want to have a trade war that speeds that downward flow. And I think that's what's happening. And it's part of the reason why he's so intent on getting more interest cuts from Jay Powell and from the Fed. And so, and you've got on the other side, we always talk about Trump's politics, but sometimes we forget about President Xi's politics. So Xi Jinping in China has got the 70th anniversary of the People's Republic coming up October 1st. He's in a trade war with Trump and a technology war as well. He's got protests in Hong Kong. He's got a Uyghur minority, Muslim minority he's cracking down on. There is no way President Xi at this point ahead of that anniversary can look weak. So I think he really has shifted from looking for a deal with the U.S. to doing damage control. So don't do too much damage with the U.S., but ride this out and start adjusting your economy for a long struggle and not for any deal in the near future.
Amanda, let's talk about Brexit. What are the implications of Boris Johnson's move today to reduce the number of active days in the parliamentary calendar between now and the 31st of October?
So on one hand, what we saw happen today is a normal procedure within the British parliamentary system. It's a way of ending one legislative session, clearing the decks, having the Queen lay out the government's new priorities, and then being able to move into a new legislative session. What's unique about what happened today is the length of the suspension, which is 5 weeks. Normally, we just see this for about a week or so. What it is most likely going to do is lead the parliamentary opposition next week to trigger a vote of no confidence in Boris Johnson's government. The opposition will then have 2 weeks to try and form a new government. One hope is that they could pull together a national unity government that would ask the European Union for an extension to Brexit. If that doesn't work, we could be facing early elections in the UK. Certainly, Boris Johnson's hope is that by removing parliamentary interference over the next couple of weeks, he'll be able to negotiate a better deal with the European Union and then try and jam it through Parliament at the end of October. But that's quite risky, both in terms of what he's asking of the EU and his very limited parliamentary math back home.
Amanda, the pound fell today because people expect the chances of a no-deal Brexit have risen. Is that fair? Do you think they have risen?
Yes, I think both the chances of a no-deal Brexit, but also the chances of an early election. So really, today's move has just injected further uncertainty in a very politically charged and contentious process.
How do you, Fred, see the economic and political ripple effects of a potential no-deal Brexit in Europe and all the way here in the United States?
Well, I agree with everything Amanda said. I'll just add to that. We're ending the longest session Parliament has had since 1642. But this is also an extraordinary break. What he wants is to cut off the time that Parliament has. Usually you call Parliament together when you want to solve a crisis. He's got a crisis. He wants to get them out of the way. And he wants to limit the time they'd have to vote of non-confidence. And then coming back October 14th, you have only then, between then and October 31st, for Parliament to do anything about the no-deal Brexit. What I'm watching for is whether you're going to have some people break from him on the Tory side. And then Amanda is right, you could go to new elections. And what I'm hoping for, and you've heard me on this before, is I really think the British voter has a right to take another look at whatever deal comes in through a referendum. So the gap of what could come up, everything from a no-deal Brexit to a new referendum or election, these are dramatic days in UK history.
They are indeed.